Thank you for joining us. I'm David. I'm with EMNR, and we're getting ready for our conference here in August. We're going to be having a great conference, a lot of great speakers, and we have one of them joining us today, Dr. Donald Williams, and he's going to be speaking on why we lost the culture war and how to make a comeback. This will be on Saturday night. Sir, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, so we can get to know you.
Well, I am professor emeritus at Toccoa Falls College in the hills of Northeast Georgia. I was officially the medieval and Renaissance guy in the English department, but I also taught some theology and I taught our apologetics course, the small Christian college being the last refuge of the Renaissance man, or the
Okay.
Renaissance man wannabe, the real thing that being no longer actually possible.
Fair enough.
Uh, But yeah, I'm trained in both theology and literature, which is not as schizophrenic as it sounds, because theology, of course, is based on literature. It's based
Hmm.
on the exposition of a text, the Bible, which is made out of an awful lot. It's got, of course, it's got history, it's got law, it's even got some theology. Uh,
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
a
just a little bit of theology.
surprising amount of it is poetry and
Hmm.
stories. Stories being Jesus' favorite method of teaching. Was you ask Jesus a question, and basically his response is, "Well, let me tell you a story. There was this guy going to Damascus, and you know, uh, so um, so yeah, I made most of my living teaching Milton and Shakespeare and
Okay.
Chaucer and Beowulf, but was very active in the ministry and doing theology, planted a church. I've spent several summers over the last decade and a half in places like Uganda, Kenya, and India doing pastoral training for Church Planting International. Uh,
Amen.
so I'm basically a dweller. I'm camped out on the border between theology and literature and dealing with all the traffic going both ways across that border has been a really interesting, mind-stretching challenge that I think has given me the insights that I have.
No, no, definitely, and I know for some reason, I don't get why, but for some reason, one of the biggest issues dealing with skeptics and anti-Christians is getting them to understand that, um, despite everything else we believe about it, the Bible is a book, and it needs to be read like a book. And it's a book that has words, and it has sentences, and it has meanings, and it has context, and it has I'm like, honestly, it's one of my more favorite apologetics tools is just reminding people. I'm like, yes, I believe the Bible's the word of God, but how about we start with reading it like a book? You don't
Yeah,
pick up any other book and read it, starting at, sentence 875 and thinking you've got the entire story. I'm like, it's a book, it's literature, read. Just
yeah, absolutely.
so yeah, that
So,
sounds
yeah,
like a
I'm
perfect match.
probably best known as an apologist and an expert on the Inklings. I've got books on C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien. Uh, I've got what some people think is the standard treatment of Lewis's theology uh, from an evangelical, conservative
Hmm.
evangelical point of view. Deeper Magic, the theology behind the writings of C.S. Lewis. And one of my most recent books is Answers from Aslan, The Enduring Apologetics of C.S. Lewis. So that's basically where I'm coming from.
Well, I was gonna say your background sounds like you'd fit in perfectly with the Inklings. Because I know they were very much a literature-based group.
Well,
Um,
I'm not worthy to sharpen their pencils, but
you will
my
happily sit at their table, I'm
the,
sure.
the time that I've spent with them has certainly done me an awful lot of good.
Oh yeah, and amazing people, amazing works to spend time with. Okay, so why we lost the culture war and how to make a comeback. Tell us a little bit about this, please.
Well, I get a lot of pushback from saying that we lost the culture war. Uh, and if you arguing about did we lose it or are we just losing it badly, you're going to miss the point. We've been getting our butts kicked on that score for the last decade, at least, probably more.
Yeah.
And I don't think people get why that happened. At least I have an idea about why it happened that's a little bit unique. I think the problem is that, we were responding apologetically to what was going on in Bible and theology and philosophy and ethics, but we were completely ignoring what was happening in the English departments of secular universities. But that's where people are taught how to read. And so we had really, really sound arguments on all of the issues of the culture war about, the family and the integrity of the family and the biblical definition of marriage and why that's important. All abortion, all those issues, we had great arguments that had absolutely no traction because people had been taught to read a different way. And even
Mm.
Christians had been taught this and absorbed it without realizing that it completely undermines the very possibility of there being revelation from God, and much less that the Bible is it. And so people have been basically taught an epistemology and a hermeneutic that is summarized. You can spend a lot of time getting really, really sophisticated about this and talking about deconstruction and all kinds of things. But it all boils down to one sentence from Star Wars. Luke, trust your feelings.
Yeah.
And so, I taught in a very conservative Christian college, and I would run into students there. It's really interesting. They will say things to you in the cafeteria that they would never say to their Bible professor. Um, but
Yeah.
it was obvious. I mean, they were absolutely certain that meaning is in the eye of the beholder. A text has no meaning until the reader gives it to the text. And whatever meaning the reader gives it in his context is just as good as anybody else's meaning. Meaning is not in the text, it's in the eye of the reader. But of course, once you're operating that way, the authority of the Bible is gone.
Mhm.
Because even if you think you're basing your ideas on the Bible, the way you're reading it is that you're the authority. You're the one who's determining what it says. So,
Mhm.
uh, every level of the culture wars is involved with this. Okay. Why can't we actually run our government according to the Constitution? Because the Constitution means what any 5 out of 9 people in black robes want it to mean. Okay. Now, we've kind of relaxed because we happen to have a more or less conservative majority on the Supreme Court right now. But the basic issue hasn't changed. Most people still think it's perfectly fine for if the liberals get to appoint another justice, another different 5 out of 9 to tell us what the Constitution means according to what they think it needs to mean or want it. So in the church, you have the crisis of authority because people read the Bible according to what they think it means, not according to its original meaning. Do the same thing with the Constitution. We do the same thing with literature in secular universities. And so the rug was pulled out from under us. We had all of these great theological and apologetic and philosophical and ethical arguments. And people just look at us like, what are you talking about? It goes right past them because they have been taught that there's no issue, there's no question. It's simply reading is in the eye, meaning is in the eye of the beholder, and this is unquestioned. They've never questioned it. Even kids in Christian colleges who came from public schools, and even some of the ones who came from Christian schools, Their conservative worldview is just uh, a thin coat of paint over an essentially a mind that is essentially operating on secular principles. So uh, we lost the culture war insofar as we lost it because we were fighting the wrong battle on the wrong battlefield. And so
Yeah.
we've got to make hermeneutics how people read the world and how people read books in general, including the Bible. That's got to become one of the primary foci of our apologetic instead of something that we leave to the side because, I mean, who cares what they're doing in the English department? That's just a bunch of stupid poetry and stories that people read for fun. That doesn't really, oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
matters because the unspoken assumptions about how people are going to read the Bible that they don't even know they have are carried with them into even conservative seminaries and Christian
Mhm.
colleges and Bible departments. And I think an awful lot, in fact, I know an awful lot of our Bible professors, even, they can refute the old stuff. They may be able to refute the documentary hypothesis, but they don't even understand how big of a gap there is in communication between them and the mind of their students that has been formed by this other worldview.
Yeah.
So, uh, yeah, that's basically my paper in a nutshell.
I didn't realize how important that subject was, but um, hearing you explain it, it makes so much sense. And by
Mm.
practical example, literally just minutes before we hopped on to record this, I was talking with a anti-Christian, and he's saying, love is, and he claims to follow Jesus, but he says love is the most important thing. And I'm like, okay, who was the first person that Jesus told us to love? Well, he didn't. Jesus didn't believe God was a person.
What?
And I'm
That,
like, and he claims to have been a science teacher.
yeah.
And
Well,
I'm like, but it's really it's literacy. There is a question of, okay, what was the culture in which Jesus lived? Okay, that takes a while to understand. I can understand that. But you're literally going to, like, Jesus regularly calls God Father, but he didn't use the word person, so we can't say that Jesus. I'm like, this is it really is literacy 101. And if you
mm,
have literacy 101, it doesn't matter what apologetics books we write because no one's going to understand them.
right.
And
Exactly right.
oh, wow, yeah. Thank you very much for speaking on this subject. Um,
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, we will make a small dent in this monolithic
yeah.
wall of hermeneutics that's been erected to basically shut us out from the public square.
It,
Because
well,
because we're talking past people and we don't understand why, and they don't realize we are, but it's just killing us.
it reminds me of the I can't think of the guy's Billy Carson. I don't know if you heard of the saga of him. He claimed to be the world's foremost expert on ancient manuscripts. And then he did an
Oh,
interview with Wes Huff, who actually has ancient manuscripts in his house that he's handmade because you can see where this is going.
I don't have any actual ancient manuscripts in my house, but I have actually seen and worked with them.
Yeah, it's well,
Yeah.
this guy was, yeah, but that led to an interview or to a round table with, I believe it was Michael Jones of Inspiring Philosophy, it was Wes Huff, and then Mike Winger. And Mike Winger made a critical point of the people like that, the conspiracy theorists who've never studied this subject a day in their lives. Well, if they talk convincingly enough, and a lot of them can, and they can repeat the things well, they can sound like they know, that their stuff is on point, and there's just enough truth to it. He mentioned the Sinai Bible, or Codex Sinaiticus. He didn't know the actual name, but he mentioned the Sinai Bible. There's just enough truth in there. It's like, well, yeah, I can. The manuscript exists, so what he says about the manuscript is true. And Mike Winger's point was, some of these claims are so outrageous But the only way you can really disprove them is to do so much work to understand the subject, to realize how ridiculous some of these claims are.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's where we're at is if people don't know how to read, I mean, I want to say current statistics is I think a third grade reading level in America.
Hmm.
And the Ivy League schools are starting to come out admitting that they can't, they are struggling to get their students to finish reading entire books. Ivy League schools.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe it.
So, well, I was
And
going to
if
ask,
they
huh?
did read entire books the way they're being taught to read them in the
Hmm.
Ivy League, it wouldn't actually help a
I
lot.
mean, there is that too, but um,
Yeah.
so I was going to ask why you and why this, but you've already answered the questions of why you're the one speaking about it. That's literally your forte. And why this? Because the church has a very painful road ahead of it. So instead, I want to
If
ask two questions related to your related works. One, are you planning on writing a book about this? And or two, I know you've written a wide variety of other books. Can you talk about some of your other books that are related to this that we can go on ahead and start getting and reading?
I've
Because
already
all
written
of us are literate.
already written two books that touch on this.
Okay,
One is called Inklings of Reality, Essays Toward a Christian Philosophy of Letters,
okay,
book about a Christian philosophy of reading.
okay.
For people of the book, we've got a history of thinking about what that means that most contemporary Christians are completely ignorant of. So, what should we be reading? Why should we be reading? How should we be reading? Um, Goes into all of that kind of stuff. And then one of my more recent books is called 95 Theses for a New Reformation. Uh, Imagine if Martin Luther were alive today, and if instead of being concerned with the corruption of late medieval Catholicism, he was concerned with the corruption of contemporary evangelicalism, what 95 Theses might we get then? And so I'm arguing that the evangelical movement, we keep praying for revival, and rightly so, but I think we need more than that. I think nothing less than a second Reformation is going to save us from ourselves. And so I deal with lots of different areas in that book where I think uh, Reformation is needed, and hermeneutics and reading and the Christian mind and our whole approach to education are all things that are kind of circling around this idea.
Mhm.
And so anybody who wanted to learn more about it would find a lot to occupy them in those two books.
I'll definitely have to go grab them then. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and we are very much looking forward to your talk on. Let me make sure I get the dates right on this. This is August 15th and 16th. We'll have the link in the show notes. It's in Illinois. I don't remember the city offhand. Uh,
Palatine,
yeah, it's at New Hope Community Church, uh, Palatine Road in Palatine, Illinois. So
okay. Hope I'll
thank
see
you
you
very,
there.
hopefully, sir. Thank you very much and have a good day.
You too.